With political communications analyst Paul Bell. He's speaking to us from Tbilisi in Georgia. Paul, welcome to the program. Always good to speak to you. Now, Paul, Russia has quite a few proposals for NATO that it's given to them, and one of them is being that the group has to ask Moscow for consent if it wants to deploy troops in Eastern and Central Europe. But how is NATO going to be looking at some of these proposals? Surely they won't just say yes to everything. There has to be some sort of compromise between the two.
I don't necessarily think there has to be a compromise, frankly. I'm not sure that NATO is in a position to compromise on any of the red lines that Moscow says it has established. I think, the question is, well, what does Putin want? He wants recognition. He wants recognition that Russia and the US are equal managers of world affairs, global crises, etc. And I think he probably also like to try to marginalize Western Europe in this process. And at the same time, this would help to create further tensions within NATO. Obviously, he wants some kind of guarantee as well around what he considers to be the Russian sphere of influence. And finally, he would probably like to see the Ukrainian leadership effectively fold under the pressure that is gathering around them, and perhaps turn public opinion in Ukraine ultimately against the current government and see it fall or be changed to a new government that is more well disposed towards Russia. So, if you look at all of these areas, I don't think there's much that can be conceded by NATO in broad terms. But that doesn't mean to say that there might not be areas of accommodation, perhaps beyond the immediate terms of these red lines. In economic relations between Russia and the West, and in return, of course.
Sorry, Paul. What would some of those areas of accommodation look like then? Because, like you said, Russia's got these very strong red lines. One of them being is that they don't want Ukraine to get NATO membership, and America, as well as several other members of NATO, have said, "Look, Putin, if you cross that border and invade, we're going to implement tougher economic sanctions, possibly, obviously not troops on the ground, but military support for Ukraine." So where does accommodation come into all of that?
I would imagine that it would have to be in the economic sphere. I mean, there's no question that Russia's economy is flagging quite badly, and it could probably use easier access to Western credit lines, things like that. These are things that would emerge, if you like, on the fringes of the central discussion, and then, possibly become more established later on. But there's no quick fix here. That's for sure. On the basis that these discussions have apparently been set up, one can't see that there can be any more than a continuing, very frank exchange between both sides as to what the consequences of further action against Ukraine would be.
Yeah, and that's all coming up, of course, in the next 2 weeks. We'll be keeping a close eye on those meetings. Paul Bell, great to get your analysis. Thank you so much.